They're coming. Coming for your freedom.
Hi, I'm Tim Schafer from Double Fine Productions, the president and CEO, founder, and good friend of Bradley Muir. Here he is, Brad. Brad, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Brad Muir. I'm project lead on Trenched.
That's true.
In 2007, we did this process called the Amnesia Fortnite project. So we took 2 weeks. It was right in the middle of Brutal Legend, and we took 2 weeks and split the team into smaller groups. So Tim chose me to lead one of the teams. I really like tower defense games. I really like the strategic section of those games where you're thinking about which turrets you're going to buy and which enemies you're going to be fighting and things like that. But then when the waves start coming and you're out of money, you just kind of sit there, and it's this passive experience where you cross your fingers, you hope that your defenses hold up as the enemies come through. So it was really thinking about the Brutal Legend engine and the technology that we had made for that game and how we could improve on that passive part of a tower defense game. Taking the tower defense game, putting you down on the battlefield so that you can fight alongside your turrets, and you have this strategic section of the game in between the enemy waves where you're thinking about where they're coming from, how you're going to spend your money, all those things that make tower defense games great, but then kind of injecting this new shooter experience into it to make it a more active experience where you're dealing with enemies coming from multiple directions, and you're thinking about where they're coming from next, and you're helping your towers, and you're doing all the things that make shooters great. I think that fusion was really the seed of the idea, trying to have a more active, more visceral tower defense game.
And I thought that sounded like a good idea. So I said, I will not stop you from making that game. No, I thought that Brad had a great idea, and he should lead one of our Amnesia Fortnite projects, and so he made it really fun demo in like those 2 weeks, and we were all having fun playing it around the office. It was multiplayer. We had that tech all ready to go, so we could see what you can see now in the final game, which that's really fun to play with 3 other friends in the 4-person co-op mode. The setting for the game is right after World War I, where these veterans who were wounded are working in a radio listening station, listening to enemy broadcasts for clues, and they hear this powerful broadcast which warps their minds and makes them actually super intelligent. And these two in particular, Frank Woodruff and Vladimir Farnsworth, take 2 different paths after mutating in that way. And Frank uses his super intelligence to create these mechanical legs to help wounded soldiers walk around after the war. And Vladimir creates television, which is his way of bringing the world to him. And he kind of goes crazy, and his television network starts expanding, and he starts trying to wire the entire world with building this army of tube soldiers that go out and try and hook up the whole world. And so the Mobile Trench Brigade is Frank Woodworth's the last line of defense against Vlad's taking over the world. And I think a lot of it is inspired by some of the great men's magazines from the 40s and 50s, which had this kind of over-the-top, fun take on, just manliness.
We just did a lot of exploring different art styles and different concept art and things like that. I think it was Scott Campbell actually who did a bunch of the art on Psychonauts and Brutal Legend. He drew this really awesome kind of like smoky, shadowy figures that had these TVs embedded in them. Just super fun to shoot, basically. So we took that as like the original concept, and we got Peter Chan to help out, threw that idea at him, and like, what's the craziest TV monster Peter Chan can come up with? So he came up with these really organic kind of insectoid monovision enemies. In each mission, you're going to be defending one or more buildings from these waves of monovision attackers. So you'll start out, and we give you a decent amount of scrap. That's the resource in the game. And there's no towers on the field. So the first wave will come in, and from there, it's pretty much you just fighting them with your weapons. There's some downtime in between the waves, and we had to experiment with that, with like how much downtime is enough, because if we don't give you enough time between the waves, it sort of becomes really frantic. Like the game loses that strategic element. You feel really rushed in everything that you do. People are just stressed out and not having that much fun. On the other side, if it's too long, you collect all the resources, you make your decisions about where you're going to put the turrets and get yourself in a good position for the next enemy wave, and then you just kind of sit there. Yeah, it took some back and forth to get it to the point where I don't want to give away all my secrets, but
it's perfect.
I think changing the core, the chassis of the mech is really fundamental. So you can pick between the smaller engineering chassis that play more on the tower defense side, and then the larger assault chassis that play more on the shooter side. And they have different access to the number of weapons they can equip, and the number of placements and the type that they can equip. So we let you change the chassis, the legs, the weapons, the emplacements, Then we have some vanity options on the top of that. I knew that I really wanted to do from the get-go in Trench is make the scale a lot smaller so that you can always see your trench marine on the screen at all times. So this lets us do like cool vanity options like hats and jackets. In between the missions, you're running around the ship and you're actually running your pilot around rather than running your trench around. And so it lets you have this more like human connection to the actual giant robot. Like, so instead of just feeling like a giant robot, you're feeling like the actual guy who's piloting the big giant mech. We really hit a sweet spot with a number of customization options. You end up changing it a lot. Like, and we throw different challenges at you so that you really have to be changing it up to be successful. There's some depth and complexity to it. Like, we didn't completely gut what makes mech games great.
It's been really fun watching this game come together because it really is a game, I think, that proves that the premise of what we're trying to do with these multiple projects, which is explore creative ideas wherever they take us and letting them express the people that are making them. I think Trench really expresses Brad and his take on games and what he thinks is fun, and in the same way that Costume Quest or Stacking or Once Upon a Monster reflect the people who are making those games. And this is a game that seems, in a lot of ways, it's different than Stacking and Costume Quest, but it's really, you can see where it comes from with the work that Brad did on Brutal Legend, and that idea of taking something that's really kind of a remote kind of genre, a distant genre, hands off, and then turning it into a visceral on the battlefield type experience. And the fun of 4-player co-op, I think you can see a lot of the similarities there. So I think it's a great proof of the power of being able to make multiple projects at once, and letting other people lead these projects and kind of see how great they can be when they're taken to their full extreme. Brad, can you tell us when Trench will be available for download and where?
Yeah, it'll be out Xbox Live Arcade 2011. Sometime.
Thank you.